of higher education, revitalizing higher education in Africa. Human resources are greatest assets, transforming Africa's saturation. We espouse these virtues and scholarship. We research with joy, liberty and truth. We facilitate teaching and learning in all disciplines and cultures, transforming Africa's education. AAU, the hub of excellence, shaping Africa's educational thoughts.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor to introduce the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, in the person of Professor Etienne Ehile, as he joins the high table. Thank you so much, Prof. We are also very much privileged to have the Vice President, West Africa Region of the Association of African Universities, and he is in the person of Professor N.N.N. Nyama, and that is Professor Nicholas Nsunwa Nyama. Thank you, Prof. We are also privileged to have Dr. Kweku Danso, and he is a research fellow, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center, and he's one of our panelists. Thank you so much, sir. You can kindly join. We also have Dr. Ifua Boatimai Akohine, and she is also a research fellow, Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy, Lesiad, University of Ghana, Legon. I'm sure she's not in yet. Dr. Patrick Osei Kufo. Dr. Patrick Osei Kufo. You represent him? Okay. We also have Dr. Kumi Ansakoi. Doc. And finally, we are privileged to have the Executive Secretary of NAPTEX in the person of Mrs. Sheila Boama. Mrs. Sheila Boama, can you kindly join the high table for us? Thank you very much. There will be a second acknowledgement and also invitation to the high table, but we would want to quickly go on to the opening remarks, and we have the representative of the Director of ICT, Knowledge Management Services here at the Association of African Universities in the person of Mrs. Felicia Kwabeji to give us the opening remarks. Shall we put our hands together for Mrs. Felicia Kwabeji?
Good morning, and we want to welcome all of you. Before I start the formal welcome address, which I was given, because as you are aware, I'm representing the Director of Knowledge Management, who really couldn't be with us. I just want to acknowledge the presence of our other people who are in the other room. Fortunately for us, we got quite a number of people, and the room is so full we couldn't accommodate all of them here. So there's another set of people who are in the other room who are joining us via what we are streaming. So it's just good that we acknowledge their presence as well. I'm sure they are watching us. And when it gets to the discussion session, we would see if it will be possible for them to join us as well. On that note, I would move on straight to the presentation I'm making on behalf of Madam Nudumod Lamini, who is the Director of ICT Communications and Knowledge Management. The Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, Professor Etienne Ehile, our special guest in the person of Madam Karen Eduka, who is the International Development Advisor, U.S. Agency for International Development. I don't know if she's here. Dr. Asibi Napo, the Chief Regional Coordinator, Education International, Africa Regional Office, and all the key people on the high table. We have Dr. Kweku Danso, Dr. Patrick Osei Kufo, Dr. Kumi Ansakoi, Ms. Sheila Boama, Professor N.N.N. Nsunwa, and all the others. We really want to welcome all of you. And the keynote speaker, Professor Kweku Osei-Hwidie, who is the Dean, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center here in Accra, Ghana. Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, esteemed Vice Chancellors from various institutions here present, representatives from our partner institution for this event, that is the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, session chairs and panelists for today's discussions, special invited guests from industry and other sectors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I stand here on behalf of the Director of ICT Communications and Knowledge Management, Ms. Nodumo Lamini, to warmly welcome all of you to the 2019 celebration of the African Universities Week. We are very excited that you all took time out of your busy schedules and you all responded positively to our invitation when we called you. And by taking time out of your busy schedules, I'm referring to both students and dignitaries. You would agree with me that for you to see a vice chancellor or to have an appointment with the vice chancellor is even at a high level. With anyone in the university, sometimes it's very, very difficult because the receptionist will even stop you before you get to see the person. And then also for our students, I'm saying you took time out of your busy schedules because around this time, I'm sure exams is just around the corner, but you still were able to join us here. And so for that time, we are very grateful that you responded to our invitation and you came to join us here. For us here at the Association of African Universities, and indeed for all higher education institutions across Africa, this is a very special week for us. Why is it special? Because it is the week where we get to celebrate the birth of the association, or in this case, I would say the establishment of the AAU some 52 years ago on November 12, 1967. The birth of AAU has been celebrated over the years to put a spotlight on the achievement of African higher education sector with a view to reflect on progress, challenges, and opportunities faced by this important sector. The celebrations are also aimed at attracting increased support for the African higher education. The theme for this year's celebration, based on which we would have all our discussions, is towards a peaceful Africa through quality higher education. Distinguished guests, our event today features key speeches, would have a high-level forum discussion on the theme, and a discussion session which would create the platform for all participants to contribute to the discussions. We believe it's good and it's actually in the right way that we let everyone contribute. So we are not only going to hear from our keynotes and from our distinguished invited guests, but we'll all get the chance to contribute to the discussions. We are very optimistic that we would all leave here with a more enriched understanding of the key issues as far as this topic is concerned. And then we also want to believe that each one of us will leave at the end of today's session with specific resolutions concerning what we can do differently in our own space and institutions to attain quality Africa higher education, as stated in the theme, as well as what we can do to ensure that there is peace and security for higher education to actually thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to today's event happening here at the Secretariat, let me also take you through the other events that is happening this week on the continent in line with the African Universities Week celebration, because it's not a Ghana theme, it's actually African Universities Week. So there are quite a number of other events happening on the continent in other countries. So we just want to briefly walk you through. The celebrations actually started yesterday, November 11th, and the AAU North Africa Regional Office, which is hosted by Al-Azhar University in Egypt, hosted an event where they did announcement of the opening of the week celebration, and this was done by Professor El Mahrasawi, who is the Al-Azhar University president. and also an AAU governing board member. Following which they did the event towards the celebration itself. They hosted an art competition for university students, and they made a visit to the Faculty of Education in Al-Azhar University, also to continue the discussions and the exhibition session. Now, today being the actual birthday of the AAU, the actual day on which the AAU was celebrated, which is November 12th, Cairo University in Egypt is where the events are taking place. So all the universities in Egypt are actually converging in Cairo University for the celebration. And then here in Ghana, the AAU Secretariat, we are hosting this event, and our event, as you are aware, would feature a keynote speech and a high-level panel discussion on the theme. Again, today being 12th November, University of Port Harcourt in Nigeria, they are also hosting a day-long activities, and this is featuring exhibitions, lectures on their theme, and they are having a lightning talk and panel discussions on the theme as well. Tomorrow being the 13th, Helwan University in Egypt is where the events for all the universities in Egypt is taking place. And then 14th November, the AAU North Africa Regional Office, which is hosted by Al-Azhar, as I mentioned earlier. They are having an African forum on education for peace and a secure Africa. On 14th November, Stellenbosch University in South Africa, they are hosting an event themed towards a peaceful Africa through quality higher education, which is also on the theme. And this event involves early career researchers and academics, focusing on presentations by postdoctoral fellows and PhD students. On 15th November, the AAU North Africa Regional Office is hosting a symbolic marathon for university students to call for peace and a secure Africa, and then they would have the closing of the African University Week celebration. On 18th November, the AAU East Africa Regional Office, which is hosted by the University of Khartoum in Sudan, would mark the day. So they are actually going beyond the week to extend their celebrations all the way to 18th November. Now, there are other universities which are also hosting events as part of the African University Week. We have the Rivers State University in Nigeria. We have University of Ilorin. We have University of Jos, also in Nigeria. Jos, also in Nigeria. We have Institut Universitaire du Golfe de Guinée, which is in Cameroon. Prof, forgive me if I didn't mention it well. On that note, distinguished guests who have gathered here, all of us here at the AAU Secretariat wish to once again warmly welcome you to today's event, and we encourage you to actively participate in the discussions, as well as network, meet new people, and start new partnerships for the benefit of Mother Africa right from this meeting. Thank you all once again. We welcome you, and we hope you enjoy your stay.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kwabaji, and you ably stood in for Ms. Nodumot Lamini, who is the Director, ICT Services, Corporate Communications, and Knowledge Management. Ladies and gentlemen, we would also want to invite our keynote speaker to the high table, and he is in the person of Professor Kweku Osefide. He's the Dean, Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Shall we put our hands together for him? Thank you so much, Prof. We also want to call the Vice Chancellor, University for Development Studies, Professor Gabriel Tay Ayum, also to the high table. Prof, you are welcome. Thank you so much. Before we move to the third acknowledgement, we have a spoken word artist here, and he is going to give us a 5-minute presentation on the theme of this year's Africans University Week celebration. And the theme is Towards a Peaceful and Secure Africa Through Quality Higher Education. What role do we have to play in ensuring that we have a peaceful and secure Africa? Shall we put our hands together for Ellie Derema?
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so steering alongside the theme for today's program, I identify three things, and I would want to address them in the piece, which I have titled Changing the Narrative. So I'll touch on the youth, touch on gender-based violence or gender abuse, and also leadership in this piece. Thank you. Africa is bleeding with a public outcry of injustice. The youth, our future, have been blinded by the blind present. We have forgotten our past, and the future we promised our past is missing in today's present. How on earth could we have forgotten the glorious birth of our great nations? Africa has lost its way even till today, but maybe one day while the sun shines, we shall make hay, because poets like me will always have such inspiring words to say. We are changing the narrative. From the worst to the positive superlative. We are changing the narrative. No more walking the dusty road of the narrative. We are changing the narrative. But you see, our culture has so long exalted negativity, crippling down the limbs of creativity and stopping positivity. For long we have spoken, but our voice have not been heard because they are without dexterity, crucifying our will. Hey, look, the women are not empowered enough. Disability. We are well able to effect change. Change is coming, and we are the agents of change to change that which needs to be changed. We are ever ready to readily get ourselves ready because life is always ready to get us ready. We are changing the narrative. Our cosmodicy is palliative. We need to sift evil and injustice from Africa. We need to change the narrative. But sometimes I feel I'm a lone walker when it comes to this because this fight is relative. But in order to stop gender-based abuse, we all need to come together and fight it because it's a corporate responsibility. Together we need to walk the talk and talk the walk, practicality. But you see, we have left that aside. Now, I have been talking about this, and many people do not understand one thing that calls about leadership. Many of the foundations of this Africa that we live is breaking. The walls of Africa are shaking because we have despised the stone. The stone which will become the chief cornerstone was the backbone of the craftsman's home. The rock of ages, sliding through the pages of the ancient scrolls, seeking to find the findings and the stages of the ancient stone. Aeons old, has outlived all other stones, the stone on which Ezekiel prophesied to the dry bones. We need to touch the holy sanctuary with our feet soles so we can save our dying souls. But only God knows where your soul goes when you don't stand on your spiritual toes. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the system of the systems of this world. The principalities, causing many insanities and fatalities. The powers, breeding a generation of cowards, but decorating them with deceptive flowers. The rulers of darkness, infiltrating our minds with madness and blocking God's kindness. The wicked spirits in the heavenly places, falsely accusing men to their faces and forcing the elect of God, which are Africans, to abandon their races. But we will not be shaken, for we are a chosen generation, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, we made honest confession, so we will not be forsaken. We will not be forsaken, even if sin writes us down with this compulsion, because we are already taken. We are already taken by God through salvation and redemption, so no more faking. No more faking when liberation has broken the shackles of bondage and has given us a famous adage that Christ in us, the hope of glory. Now there is no true leadership without Christ leading us. And that is what we need to go back to. We are crippling down because we have left the foundations. The foundations of Africa should be built on a strong foundation. That is Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eli. I don't know what we picked out of his presentation, but I love the fact that we need to change the narrative as a continent, and that is why we have gathered here this morning. Next, we are going to have a special remarks And anytime I'm introducing this man, I get a bit tensed up because the time he attained his PhD, I was not on this earth. And he's played key roles in championing higher education in Africa. And so he was a former director of cabinet of the Ministry of Health and Public Hygiene in Cote d'Ivoire in March 2010. And also, he was a former president of Université de Abobo Adjamé, and now known as Université Nangui Abrogoa, Cote d'Ivoire, where he spent 2 terms of 4 years each. So from 2001 to 2010, he was a vice-chancellor. Prior to taking office as a Secretary General of the Association of African Universities in 2011, he was not new to the AAU because he was an active member of the AAU governing board since 2005. He has a lot of publications, articles, books, and authored a lot in the space of neurophysiology with honors since 1978. Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot keep on reading his biography. We are so much privileged to have Professor Etienne Ehile as the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities for 8 years, and he's been instrumental, wonderful in transforming higher education. Shall we receive Professor Etienne Ehile as he gives his special remark? Prof, you are welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am sure you will listen to Francophone English, so be patient. The Vice Chancellor of Dominion University, Accra, Ghana, and also the Vice President of the Association of African Universities, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the high table, Your Excellencies and members of the diplomatic corps, esteemed vice chancellors from various institutions here present, representatives from our partner institution, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, our distinguished keynote speaker, Professor Kwaku Osei-Hudie, I hope I pronounce it well, session chairs and prominent panelists for today's discussions, special invited guests from industry and other sectors, the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. On behalf of the governing board of the Association of African Universities, AAU, the entire membership of the AAU and my colleagues of the Secretariat, I take this opportunity to welcome you all from across the length and breadth of the African continent and beyond to the AAU Secretariat for this very important event on the calendar of Africa's higher education, the celebration of African Universities Week. I would like to express our special appreciation to the high authorities of the Republic of Ghana here present, and the various vice chancellors and representatives of public and private higher education institutions in Ghana for having found a slot in your heavy schedules to attend this ceremony. This is a testimony of your usual commitment to the AAU and higher education in general. I would also like to thank our colleagues in higher education who travel from other countries to join us here in Ghana for the celebration. Permit me to acknowledge the Deputy Rector of Université d'Abomey Calevi, Benin, Professor Zanou, who joined us at AAU for the occasion. Is he here? Professor Zanou? Okay, thank you. This is the 8th time I am celebrating the African Universities Week in Ghana as Secretary General of the Association of African Universities. I must say that this year's celebrations have been very innovative by involving all the regional offices of the AAU in the week-long event. Unlike the previous years, where the Secretariat hosted events on each day during the African University Week, we deliberately invested efforts in ensuring that the entire continent actively participates in the celebration. For this reason, several other events, including arts competition for university students, exhibitions, lectures on the theme, symbolic marathon for university students, among other key events, have been planned by institutions in Sudan, Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, Cameroon, and other countries, as Mrs. Kwagdeji said earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme for the 2019 celebration is towards a peaceful and secure Africa through quality higher education. It seeks to bring together the entire higher education community and major stakeholders in Africa to map out strategies and methodologies, as well as the place of quality higher education in the promotion of peace and security towards Africa's unity, and renaissance, in line with the fourth aspiration of Agenda 2063, a peaceful and secure Africa. Peace and security are, indeed, a major responsibility of all of us and demand a multi-stakeholder approach in all interventions. We, as higher education players and stakeholders, are not exempted from this. For the past few decades, there has been a growing concern about the peace and security situation of Africa. This has led to several policy responses, such as putting in place structures of mediation and conflict resolution, mechanisms for the management of diversity, strengthening governance and democratic principles, and sensitizing the populace of a need to have respect for the rule of law. Indeed, the key to uprooting the underlying causes of conflicts and insecurities is an informed and enlightened citizenry. Quality education comes in critically at this point. Quality education is an investment that yields profit, and as quoted by the former late United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, education is quite simply peace building by another name. Education is the most effective form of defense spending there is, for it yields promises for those who have known only poverty, progress for those who have known only privation, peace for those who have known only pain. Ladies and gentlemen, quality education at all levels is the greatest tool that can be used to impart knowledge, attitudes, and enlighten the mass population, in particular the youth. This is well articulated in the Sustainable Development Goal 4, SDG 4, which calls for inclusive and equitable quality education for all. The Continental Education Strategy for Africa, CISA 2016-2025, also takes cognizance of the need for peace to be embedded in education at all levels. The strategy calls for the promotion of peace, education, conflict prevention, and resolution at all levels of education and for all age groups. You will agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that current education policies and educational systems have not been able to adequately deliver on the promise that they hold of enlightening the general citizenry to uphold peace and security in Africa. A higher education system, which can be referred to as quality higher education, must entail awareness of the drivers and threats to peace and security, and have adequate systems established to eradicate these threats. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this backdrop that the Association of African Universities, which is the apex organization for higher education in Africa, chose to dedicate this year's African Universities Week to exploring how quality higher education can be leveraged on to deliver peace and security on the continent. The week-long celebration is dedicated to addressing cross-cutting issues such as the quality and relevance of higher education towards peace building, the intentional role higher education institutions should play towards peace building, the need to strengthen African higher education and research institutions to come out with policies and practical solutions that address current peace and security concerns on the continent, and lastly, how higher education can engage all key stakeholders, including government, in the peace-building efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to seize this opportunity to introduce the Association of African Universities to those of you who are new to the AAU. The Association of African Universities, as I said earlier, is the apex organization and forum for consultation, exchange of information, and cooperation among institutions of higher education in Africa. It represents the voice of higher education in Africa on regional and international bodies, and supports networking by institutions of higher education in teaching, research, information exchange, and dissemination. Founded on November 12, 1967, by a representative of 34 of the then 46 institutions of higher learning, the AAU currently has a membership of over 400 higher education institutions from across the 5 regions of Africa and still counting. Ladies and gentlemen, as I bring my presentation to an end, I wish to reiterate the Association of African Universities' commitment to continue working around the clock with the right stakeholders, including all of you, in ensuring the achievement of a peaceful and secured Africa through quality higher education. In the same spirit, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you all to continue working synergistically among yourselves and with other key partners, including African government, ministries of education, and development partners to support Africa higher education. I also urge us all to work with the various continental higher education frameworks and the Sustainable Development Goals in mind, as their achievements are tied intrinsically to the development of our continent. At this juncture, I would like to not take the wind out of the sails of our high-level panelists. Their experiences and depth of knowledge in the topic for discussion makes me confident of the delivery on the theme. Once again, I would like to thank you all, our excellencies, honorable guests, students, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen for joining us celebrate this year's African Universities Week. Thank you for your attention. Have we heard the Francophone English?
Thank you very much. I think this is one of the best Francophone English, Prof. You can do it better for Professor Etienne Ehele, once again. When I move to the session where I'll be introducing the AAU staff, you know where he hails from in Ghana. Great. All right. Next to be acknowledged, we are privileged to have the International Development Advisor, U.S. Agency for International Development, in the person of Karen Duka. Karen, you are welcome. Great. Oh, I thought you were clapping for her. Great. We have also been joined by Dr. Asibi Napo, and she is the Regional Chief Coordinator, Education International, Africa Regional Office. Oh, okay. Thank you so much, sir. This year's celebration is also unique. We have members of the diplomatic missions here in Ghana, representing various countries in Ghana. And we are privileged to have the High Commissioner for the Republic of Namibia in the person of His Excellency Charles B. Joseph. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much for coming. We also have the Deputy Head of Mission, the Embassy of the People's Republic of Algeria in the person of Honorable Amin Mansouri. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. We have a representative from the Republic of Niger, the Embassy of the Republic of Niger, in the person of Mr. Abdul Karim Musa. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. We also have the head of consular session and cultural affairs from the Embassy of Mexico, represented here in the person of Salazar Pons de Leon. Thank you so much for coming. Next to be acknowledged is the staff of the Association of African Universities. I am privileged to introduce the Director of Research and Academic Planning in the person of Professor Jonathan Chuks Mba, who hails from Koforidia in Ghana. Yeah, so he's from Koforidia in Ghana, but officially from Nigeria. Great. So when we give him the microphone, he will give you some tree from Koforidia. Great. Next to be introduced is Dr. Violet Makuku, and she's a quality assurance expert here at AAU. She is from Zimbabwe, but she's from Ho. Yes, she's from Ho when you come to Ghana. The director of ICT, unfortunately, she has to travel to Tanzania this morning, and she is also from Zimbabwe in the person of Miss Nodumo Dlamini, and she's from Wenchi. I wonder why and how she is from Wenchi in Ghana. I don't know whether your region or your district or your hometown will be represented by any of our staff here. We also have Miss Larissa Ozibo, and she's from Congo, but in Ghana. Larissa, where do you come from in Ghana? Tell us. From Ho. I think Ho is with it. All right. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, at this juncture, I would want to take a presentation or remarks from the All Africa Student Union, represented by the Secretary for Press and Information. Sir, you are welcome, and can you just give us a short message? And the Secretary General of the Association, All Africa Student Union, is Mr. Peter Koji. Thank you. Shall we put our hands together for him?
Good morning, members of the High Table, members of the Diplomatic and Council of Corps, Vice Chancellors of various universities here present, members of the media houses here, and my dear distinguished students, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ansumana Bibojan from the Republic of the Gambia, representing the Secretary General of the All Africa Students Union, Peter Kwasi Koji, who is a Ghanaian. Unfortunately, He is on other assignments, so he couldn't join us here. I think the theme for this year's celebrations couldn't come at a better time when the continent of Africa, is experiencing so many instabilities across the continent. And for us, we say there is a positive relationship between peace and education. There cannot be quality education without peace. So the two, go together. In order for us as a continent, to realize our full potential to growth and development, there is need for us to have a peaceful continent that will cater the needs and aspirations of all the young people. Because most of these instabilities that we're witnessing in Africa is as a result of our problems, leadership problems, corruption, nepotism, and all these are some of the things that are, hindering the progress and the development of the students of the continent. So in order for us to have quality education in our educational system, there is need for us to address the issue of instability in the continent, where as students or as young leaders, we will hold our leaders to account as to some of the things that happen. Because election violence and all other things, most of these politicians, is the young people that they use, as political seals, and most of these instabilities hinder the progress and the development of the young people in the country. For instance, like what is happening in Libya, what is happening in Somalia, and what is happening in Sudan. All those countries are currently, facing with a lot of instabilities, and all those instabilities hinders the progress and growth of our quality education in Africa. So for us at All Africa Students Union, we want to urge all policy, makers to engage on peaceful resolutions in order for us to have an inclusive, progressive higher education in the continent. On that note, I wish to thank you all, and I wish you a very fruitful discussion. And then, of course, for our old man, Prof, he has been a father to most of us, the students. In fact, if I can borrow his famous quotation, he said, there can be no university without students. So therefore, each time we knock at the doors of AAU, Prof is always willing to receive and listen to the voice of the students of the continent that we represent. So on that note, Prof, I continue, to urge you to give us, that guidance, for us to be able to harness our full potential to grow. For some of you, of course, who wants to be in the academia, I think after the end of this session, you have so many professors here. I'm sure you can take one of them as your mentor or as your role model, for you to be able to achieve whatever goals that you've set aside in the higher education. On that note, we thank you so much.
Thank you so much, the Press and Information Secretary. He is from the Gambia. I don't know where you come from in Ghana, but we'll take it from you before the session. And thank you so much for those beautiful remarks as well. Next on the list, we are privileged to have some few remarks from our guest and special guest as well. The first to speak to us is the International Development Advisor, U.S. Agency for International Development, in the person of Karen Duca. Shall we welcome her as she gives a few remarks? Thank you.
Shall I go there? Okay. Wherever you, I can stay here too. Is that okay? Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the kind invitation. I'm looking for Larissa. It looks like she's not among us, but she was very helpful to me, and I just want to give a special thank you to her. Now, I don't want to take too much time, but I will say that I was really very interested in coming to this meeting. I happened to be in Ghana for some other work last week, but I decided to stay a little bit extra because right now this is a very important topic at USAID in Washington. We just recently held a meeting at the World Food Prize on conflict, agricultural research and education, and just the whole broad range of agricultural development interventions. in places that are a little bit unstable, undergoing transformation, in conflict. So this is an important area for us right now, and we definitely recognize that universities have a big role to play. I'll be going to a meeting, I think it's next Tuesday in Washington, D.C., at the Institute for Peace on how universities can contribute to peacekeeping and stabilization. So I'm very eager to link up with you people, and I definitely want to link your organization to what is called our Board for International Food and Agricultural Development, who are addressing this very question right now as part of its advisory function to USAID. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to the presentations and the dialogue. Thank you very much.